Let's talk about Halo 4. So, a few months back, I finally picked up Halo the Master Chief Collection on PC, and I ended up falling in love with the Halo franchise all over again. This series is one of my favourite fiction franchises of all time, easily one of my top 3 video game franchises alongside Yakuza and the Elder Scrolls. Within less than 2 weeks, I'd replayed the campaigns for Halo Combat Evolved, Halo 2, Halo 3 ODST, and Halo Reach, and in less than 2 months, I'd unlocked about 250 of the game's 700 achievements. Now, the more eagle-eyed, or I guess eagle-eared among you, may have noticed that I neglected to mention one of the games in the collection. That game is Halo 4. It took me a while to decide to play through this game again. As of writing, I completed it 2 days ago, but I'd owned the collection for almost 3 months at that point. So, why did it take me so long to replay Halo 4? Well, I made a video about it, and you happen to be watching it. So, stick around, and you'll find out. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that I don't consider Halo 4 to be a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not here to bitch about the art style or rant about how 343 Industries ruined the franchise or any of that stupid stuff. Believe me, if you want to watch a video like that, there's about 9 years worth of them on YouTube that you can go watch instead. The reason it took me so long to replay Halo 4 is because I just didn't remember enjoying playing it back when I first got it. I've completed every other Halo campaign a good 7 or 8 times, but Halo 4 I've only completed, I think, twice. Once when I picked up a second-hand copy and played it for the first time in, 2013, and once when I got the Master Chief Collection for Xbox One when I bought a copy in early 2016, not long after I'd gotten the console the previous Christmas. Since then, I don't think I've touched the campaign. I had no memory of enjoying playing the game, even though I did consider the story overall to be pretty good, even if the didact is about as interesting as watching paint dry, and frankly that's an insult to the drying talents of paint. Having replayed the game, I now remember why I didn't enjoy playing it. The main problem with the game that keeps me from enjoying it is the fact that Halo 4 contains probably the most restrictive gameplay in the entire franchise. Allow me to explain what I mean. First of all, I'm going to start out by talking about mission objectives. Weird place to start, I know, but stay with me. In every other Halo game, particularly the original trilogy, exploring Forerunner structures was straightforward but never obvious. I don't really know how to phrase this in one sentence, so let me just go into detail. The level design would lead you to the objective, whatever button you needed to press to continue the mission. And when you got there, Cortana would probably say something like,
"Use the holo panel to shut down the security system."
The game would lead you there organically and point out the objective, but it was up to the player to find it. It aided in the sense of exploration and discovery present when you were wandering around in these structures, the lack of a precise point of interest adding to the mystery. It made the player feel intelligent because they figured out what to do, sometimes without even any help at all from an ally. Truth and Reconciliation from Halo Combat Evolved is a perfect example. The layout of the level leads you to the holding cells to find keys, but there's a few different rooms, and when you find the right one, you have to figure out how to open the doors by pressing this button without anyone telling you to. So what does Halo 4 do to replicate this feeling of mystery and exploration? Well, they precisely pinpoint every single objective and tell you exactly how far away it is and exactly what to do with it. And this happens almost every time you have to do anything in this game. Every button you need to press, every glowing thing you need to destroy, everything you need to walk to, every console you need to activate, it's all precisely pinpointed. Halo 4 doesn't show you where to go with organically and clearly laid out level design. It just slaps a big orange marker in your face and says, go exactly here and do exactly this. It ruins any sense of exploration that the game could present you with, and it stops the player from feeling intelligent about figuring out how to progress. I'm not saying that Halo needs to be some dense-ass puzzle game, but this level of obviousness in its game design is just insulting to the player's intelligence. Take this example, when Cortana and Chief try to activate Requiem's cartographer to find a way off the planet. After trying to activate it, you realise you need to activate 2 more things before you can use it. These buttons are located at the back of the room on both sides. Now, it wouldn't be difficult to design this room in such a way that the corridors to the buttons are easily identifiable. Just put some light around those doors, maybe some more lights on the floor indicating the path that you can take, and voila! An easy way to communicate to the player visually where they're meant to go. You wouldn't even have to redesign the room, just add a few more light sources and you're done. But instead, Halo 4 just slaps 2 orange waypoints on your HUD. So of course, you walk towards the waypoints, find your way to the objective, and complete it with zero thought or interesting game design. Just walk towards the orange dot. This is what I mean when I say that the objectives are restrictive. You don't ever feel the need to do something, because you know the game is just going to slap a big, bright waypoint on your HUD. It's so boring to never have to think about what you need to do next, to not be organically guided to your objective. You want to know how reliant the game is on these stupid markers? When you get to the part of Reclaimer where you have to take down the Lich, the waypoint for the part of the ship that you're meant to destroy glitched out on me, and said that my objective was 1,000 meters back the way that I came. As a result, I had no idea what part of the Lich I was meant to be shooting to destroy it. I killed the elite that was piloting it, that didn't work. I tried blowing up the console that the pilot was at, that also didn't work. I tried shooting it with the turret on the Gorse Warthog a bunch of times, that didn't work. In the end, I just ended up reloading the whole level to check if it had glitched or not. And the same thing happened again. I tried all the same stuff, none of it worked. So I looked up a walkthrough, and as it turned out, I had to blow up this piece of the ship, which, with no waypoint, has absolutely nothing that marks it out as important or as something that you need to destroy. Remember how Halo 3's Scarabs had a massive glowing part that you needed to destroy? Remember how that huge glowing ball made it very obvious that this was the bit you needed to destroy? Yeah, clearly 343 don't remember. That's how restrictive and boring these waypoints are. You literally cannot play the game without them. And restrictive, boring level design doesn't just stop at the objectives. The vehicle levels are a complete joke. Gone are the days of open, expansive vehicle levels that give you the freedom of choice in how you approach your objectives. Every vehicle level in this game sticks you in a single, linear corridor with no alternate paths. In the second level, you get given a Warthog. You start thinking, oh cool, is this going to be like the second level of Combat Evolved? Am I going to get to drive around Requiem and explore it? To which the game replies, shut the fuck up and go drive down this one path. And then, if you're playing single player, which most people are, you inevitably abandon the Warthog once you run into the enemies because there's nobody to man the turret. In another level, you get given a Scorpion tank, and you get to drive it through a really cool, interesting, linear corridor. Anyone remember the level The Ark from Halo 3, where you got that massive open tank battle towards the end? But it's okay, because then you get to use this really cool new vehicle, the Mantis, and you use it to kill enemies down another linear corridor. Are you kidding me? They even managed to make flying a pelican boring, something that's been a wet dream of every Halo player, because there's nothing to do but fly to waypoint 1, and then fly to waypoint 2. To show you why this is so outrageous, I'm going to talk about a few other vehicle levels from previous Halo games. The best example of a non-linear Halo vehicle level I can think of is New Alexandria from Halo Reach. You get to pilot a Falcon around an entire city as it falls apart around you. You can land on every single one of the buildings in the map, and the selection of objectives that you get will be a totally random selection. This level will play out differently almost every time you load it up. There are some objectives that you'll always get, those being the nightclub, hospital, and the tower with the drones, but the others will be randomly chosen. You might help to kill anti-air turrets to aid in evacuation. You might help Buck evacuate some of his ODST squad. You might escort another Falcon, or something else entirely. Another fantastic vehicle level is Halo from Halo Combat Evolved. You get 3 set objectives, but you're allowed to just drive around and complete them in any order, and you're rewarded for exploring by finding weapons, ammo, and health. Bear in mind, this game came out in 2001, and it has better, more open design than the game in the same franchise that released in 2012. Now, to be fair to Halo 4, a lot of Halo 2's vehicle levels also suffer from being too linear. The only one that really opens up and gives you some freedom in your use of the vehicle is the Banshee section in the Arbiter. But even so, Halo 2's vehicle levels would usually at least give you a choice of vehicles to use. Like how on Uprising you can pick between a Wraith, a Ghost, or a Spectre, or Outskirts, which lets you choose between a Warthog and a Ghost. And even in levels with no choice in vehicles, you still get to see cool stuff happening around you, like fighting alongside Johnson's Scarab in The Great Journey, or the giant sentinels in Quarantine Zone that can crush your vehicle if you're careless. The only cool thing I can think of that happens to you in a Halo 4 vehicle level is when the Didact's Cryptum gets shot at by the Infinity, and even then that has nothing to do with the player. Aside from this, every vehicle level in Halo 4 is linear and boring, with nothing interesting going on to keep the player engaged. Combine this with the restrictive waypoints and the invisible barriers everywhere, and Halo 4 might just have the most linear levels in the entire franchise. The only time I remember a Halo game having levels anywhere close to this linear is Halo 3 ODST, but the Mombasa Street segments and the Great Story give you your fill of non-linearity and something else to keep you happy when it does get linear. There's a whole host of non-linear cool stuff in ODST too, like how in Tayeri Plaza you can use this building to flank your enemies, and on the way you can come across some elites who've been murdered by the brutes.
What the hell happened here?
Final notice. Bill past due.
Ah! Up there! They're above us! Now get it off me!
Another stick!
You can find more of them under a bridge later on, and Buck and Dare will actually briefly talk about it.
Veronica, what's with all the dead elites?
What do you mean?
Looks like a family feud, like they were killed by brutes. Is there something I should know?
It's classified.
Some things never change.
And there's something else that ODST does right that makes the game great in spite of its linearity, and that's the combat. And Halo 4 messed that up too. Halo 4, in my mind, has the least enjoyable combat in the whole franchise. I'm going to start off by talking about the Covenant levels first. The Covenant in this game are boring to fight, and that is a sentence that you should never have to say about a Halo game. To start with, Halo 4 is missing the brutes, engineers, and drones from previous games, which already hugely limits combat. In Halo 2 and 3, brutes provided a cool, enjoyable, sometimes enjoyable contrast to the Elite and other Covenant ground forces, a far more aggressive enemy that could charge you to try and melee you, and wield powerful explosive weapons. The engineers added a new dynamic to combat by adding shields to other enemies. They made combat encounters trickier, but not too tricky, and they added another piece to the combat system. In Halo 3 ODST they can even try to kamikaze you. And drones added a whole new dimension to combat by attacking you from the air in swarms, like fighting a pack of grunts that can fly. They were weak, but their numbers could overwhelm you if you get careless. They also serve to break up the monotony of always fighting enemies on the ground. Without these three enemies, Halo 4's combat is already less engaging than the previous games. No brutes mean that every Covenant encounter is going to be a mid to long range gunfight with a minor amount of close quarters if an elite tries to melee you or has a sword. No engineers mean that there's no variety in enemy health. You can kill every grunt with a single headshot, every jackal with the 1-2 punch of a shot to the hand and then a headshot, every elite type will have the exact same shield strength and health. There's zero variety. It's going to be the same every time, so with no engineers you never have to think about switching up your tactics when facing the Covenant. No drones mean there's no variety in enemy placement. The highest up an enemy will be is a sniper jackal in one of these floating platforms. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing. Halo Combat Evolved also doesn't have any of these enemies either. However, Combat Evolved gets a pass partly because it was the first game in the series. It came out in 2001, so the brutes, drones and engineers either couldn't be created with the technology at the time, or just hadn't been conceptualized by Bungie yet. Combat Evolved also gets a pass because fighting the Covenant is far more engaging and entertaining. In Combat Evolved, every enemy serves a role. The grunts act as cannon fodder. They're weak, but they can overwhelm you sheer numbers. The jackals are defensive enemies. They're good at draining your shields while being harder to kill, but they have a weakness via their exposed hand which you can shoot to line them up for a headshot. Elites are basically your equal. They're aggressive and powerful, but if you can flank them and get behind them, you can kill them with a single melee hit. Hunters are mini-bosses. They're the most powerful enemies that you'll face, but their exposed back provides a weak spot that you can exploit. All of these enemies and their AI work together to make memorable, challenging combat encounters. It's the reason why people still talk about how great Combat Evolved's gameplay is to this day, and why, when it came out in 2001, it was so revolutionary. So with 11 years of technological development and 5 whole games to study to make their combat, what did Halo 4 do to the Covenant to keep them interesting? Well, absolutely nothing. In fact, they made them worse. So much worse. The elites are the worst defenders. In previous games, you could predict how an elite was going to fight, and you could exploit that knowledge to win. If you can dodge an elite's melee attack, you can get behind him and melee him in the back. While Halo 4's melee takes 10 frames to land, and it kills you instantly on legendary difficulty, so that's that strategy torpedoed. If you land a sticky grenade on an elite in other games, he'll probably charge you and try and take you down with him. Halo 4? Good luck sticking these guys in the first place. And even if you do manage to stick them, then they barely react at all. Another point, Halo 4's elites are extremely weak. To melee kill an elite in this game, you don't even have to fully deplete its shields. I get that this is probably supposed to enhance the feeling of power you get from playing as the Master Chief, the best soldier in the galaxy, but it comes at the cost of gameplay being challenging. So, I've explained why the elites suck in this game and are boring to fight. Their low quality, unpredictable AI, which is a massive downgrade from the original game that came out 11 years before it, and their weak health make them boring to fight and don't necessitate any kind of interesting strategy from the player. Grunts and Jackals are frustrating to fight because, for some inexplicable reason, the Needler and Plasma Pistol have insane player tracking ability. They're virtually undodgeable. This means that, especially on higher difficulties, you're not going to want to fight Grunts and Jackals at close range because their undodgeable fire is going to quickly drain your shields and make you easy to kill. Because of this, every gunfight with the Covenant devolves into either a long-range shootout with a precision weapon, or a boring standard shooter game where you pop in and out of cover to make sure that you don't die. Covenant encounters in this game are ruined by the unpredictable and weak elites with their broken melee, and the Grunts and Jackals that you can't reliably engage up close. Because of this, you're restricted to only fighting the Covenant from mid-range with a precision weapon, and popping in and out of cover when they shoot back, because trying to fight them any other way will probably get you killed. Now, if you thought the Covenant fights were restrictive and boring, then boy oh boy will you not enjoy the Prometheans. The Covenant can be boring to fight, but the Prometheans are actively aggravating. So as I just explained, the reason that Halo combat works so well in all the other games is because of the highly specialised role that each enemy plays, and the freedom to approach combat however you want. Let's say I enter a fight in a previous Halo game, and I'm faced by an elite, 3 Jackals, and a pair of Hunters. Already, I can think of so many different ways to take on this fight. For example, I might run in on foot and throw a grenade at the Jackals to take them out. Then I grab a plasma pistol off a dead Jackal, use a charged shot to take out the elite shield and take him down with a headshot. Then I take on the Hunters, who I've been able to mostly avoid due to their highly telegraphed, slow ranged attacks, by getting in close and exploiting their slow melee to get behind them and exploit their weak spot. This is a completely viable strategy. Alternatively, you might go in by running the elite over with a Warthog, and then quickly rushing in to take out the Hunters and just dealing with the shield damage from the Jackals, because you can quickly take them out once you've taken care of the Hunters. I think Noodle puts it best in this part of his video, Halo is Important. It's a great video, by the way. You should probably go watch it.
In any Halo game, the experience will be very different depending on your guns, the bad guys, and the map layout. Enemies are placed almost like chess pieces on a board. A shootout that looks like this
Triple kill.
is gonna play out completely different from, say, this.
Double kill. Triple kill.
Combat with the Covenant in Halo games is usually fantastic, but the Prometheans actively ruin what made this combat system so good. In Halo 4, you have 3 Promethean enemy types. You have the Crawlers, who are basically the Grunt equivalent, the Knights, who are the Elite equivalent, and the Watchers, who have no equivalent. The Watchers are what breaks the combat system. Watchers act as something of a support role for other Prometheans. They can create a shield in front of a Knight that you're attacking to stop you damaging it, they can catch your grenades out of mid-air and throw them away, they can even revive enemies that you've already killed, all of this while shooting at you themselves. They're some kind of chimera abomination of a drone, an engineer, and a flood infection form. Now, bearing in mind their abilities, what reason do I have to kill anything but the Watcher first? Like, oh cool, I just killed that group of Crawlers. Oh, no, wait, the Watcher just revived them and now I have to kill them again. Or, okay, time to take down this Knight. Oh, never mind, the Watcher is shielding it, so I can't do anything. Here's a Noodle clip again to explain why this lack of freedom is so bad.
And the game is full of little details like this. There's no single strategy that'll work well for every encounter. At any given time, the player is making dozens of subconscious, split-second decisions that drastically impact the course of battle. And because of that, your solution might look entirely different from somebody else's. It's so fucking good! You can replay this bit as many times as you like. It doesn't matter what gun you use, it's always going to play out the same way, because there's only one viable option.
There is never a situation in this game where you don't want to kill the Watcher first. It only serves to make combat more tedious and actively ruin the flow, and make sandbox elements completely useless. Once again, this is highly restrictive. I have no freedom in my approach to combat when I'm fighting Prometheans. And it's not just the Watchers that make Promethean combat endlessly unenjoyable. The Knights are terrible for this too. Knights can come with a range of abilities. They can summon a turret, summon a Watcher, and teleport. Now, the only one of these that isn't that bad is the turret. It's pretty weak and it's not really a pain to take out because it doesn't move. The summoning of a Watcher, however, is just patently nonsense. It adds a whole extra enemy to the combat encounter, and it's the one enemy that you have to kill first, no questions asked. It disrupts the flow of combat by forcing you to entirely change your focus to a different enemy for no reason. The teleport ability also sucks because it's totally random in every sense. First of all, there's absolutely no indication of when this will happen. Plenty of enemies in Halo games have specific abilities that only trigger under certain circumstances. For example, Halo 2 brutes. They are far from perfect enemies, but you can be totally certain that they will only go berserk if they are the last brute left alive. But knights? They'll just teleport whenever they want to, and with absolutely no visual or audio cue to let the player know. And you don't even know where they'll teleport to. Knights will teleport either to get away from the player to avoid damage, or teleport to flank the player and kill them. But, since the animation and visuals are always the same, you have no idea why they're teleporting. This teleport also disrupts the flow of a fight because the enemy you're attacking literally just vanishes away from you. Knights also suck to fight because of their design. They can come equipped with several different weapons, but unless you're some 100 IQ genius, it's basically impossible to tell what gun they have at a glance. Let me show you something. Here are 3 elites. Just from a glance you can tell what each elite is armed with from how they're standing and the colours of their guns. You can tell this elite is armed with a plasma rifle, the bit of purple on the gun shows that this elite has a needler, and the fact that this elite is holding his gun with 2 hands tells you that he must have a carbine. Now tell me, which of these knights has a scatter shot, which of them has a light rifle, and which has a binary rifle? Having trouble telling? Well, it's this one, and this one, respectively. The way that the game communicates this is so obtuse that it's baffling to me. If you're incredibly attentive and also Sherlock Holmes, you can tell them apart by the arrangement of spikes on their back, but other than the actual firing pattern of their gun, it's extremely hard to tell at a glance what gun a knight has. They all hold their guns with one hand because their other arm ends in this big sword, so you can't tell by stance, and the guns don't vary in colour scheme, so you can't tell by that either. And because some of these guns, like the scattershot or incineration cannon, can obliterate you up close, especially on harder difficulties, you're once again just going to hang back and fight them from range. Also partly so that you can keep shooting them if they teleport further away. Another reason you won't fight a knight up close is because they also possess the same broken 10-frame melee that the elites have. Knights and Watchers destroy all sense of freedom in approaching combat with the Prometheans. They reduce every fight to a mid to long range gunfight, where you always take out the Watchers first. There's plenty of other ways that the game restricts you too, like the stupid kill barriers, invisible walls, and boring quicktime events, but I can't really come up with enough to say about them to warrant inclusion, other than the pitiful ammo capacity, which basically strong-arms you into using different weapons rather than just letting you use them if you feel like it. Previous games were great at this. You could feasibly keep the same weapons for a whole mission if you so wished. Hell, Combat Evolved even has an achievement for finishing Truth and Reconciliation with your sniper with more than 20 bullets left. If you want to know how bad Halo 4's ammo capacity is, just look at the plasma pistol. In Halo CE, it took 500 shots to completely deplete a plasma pistol's battery. In Halo 4, it takes 50. And yes, I'm aware that Bungie lowered ammo counts from Halo Combat Evolved to Halo 2 and Halo 3, but the fact that 343 reversed this in Halo 5, giving the plasma pistol 100 shots, and giving more ammo to all the other guns, pretty clearly illustrates, at least to me, that this was just a bad design choice. In other Halo games, you tried to pick the best 2 weapons for your current situation, but in Halo 4, you pick whatever 2 weapons still have a bullet left for you to shoot. Overall, just about every feature of Halo 4 is designed, intentionally or not, in a way that restricts the player into interacting with the game and the sandbox in very few ways. Vehicle levels are linear and uninspired, Covenant combat is a boring mid-range gunfight every time, Promethean combat doesn't even give you the freedom of picking what enemy to shoot first, the level design fails to inspire the player to think or explore, and what little exploration you feel motivated to do will often be met with kill barriers and invisible walls. Halo 4 is lacking in just about any player freedom, and this restrictiveness is its biggest detriment. As I said at the start, I don't think Halo 4 is a bad game. It has some genuinely great moments and a pretty good story, but all of that means nothing when the bulk of the game fails to capture what made previous games so entertaining. Thank you for watching.